Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this Docent Enrichment Zoom. Justin Talon, who is the founder of Pacific Rex, and Brianna Fyant, who's from the Richard Bong Center in Superior, Wisconsin, are joining us. They're going to chat with us about finding Richard Bong's P-38 Lightning Marge in New Guinea and what's going to happen in the future. So, Justin, if you'll pop on that, we'll let you take over the speaking role.
Very good. Hello, good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for the invitation to join you. First, I want to just thank Paul. We met at EAA AirVenture that last year. He attended a lecture similar to the one you're about to hear now and said, hey, you got to talk to my group. And he said, how about February 2026? That seemed like a long way off, but here we are now. So thank you very much, Paul. And I'd like to hand it off to Brianna to introduce herself. Brianna, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having us today. My name is Brianna. Brianna Fyant. I am the curator of collections and exhibits at the Richard Bong Veterans Historical Center in Superior, Wisconsin. And that is Bong's hometown.
Very good. Well, everybody can see the shared screen. We're really excited to speak to you guys because you are docents, the real blood of the museum, the Air and Space Museum. I've seen you guys give your tours. I've been to the Hazy Center in downtown many times over the years, and I really respect and admire how you guys work with guests, how you inspire people every day. Not only do we look to present this material to you, but to make this interactive and use the Q&A session to get your feedback and input on what we're going to talk about, a future exhibit, and also see if you guys have any thoughts or input. And who knows, perhaps this exhibit could come to the Air and Space Museum one day. So to kick things off and relate this to what you know, in the Udvar Hazy Center is a P-38 Lightning. And this aircraft is in an unrestored condition. It is actually a J model. It is a J-10 Lightning. And amazingly, this aircraft was once flown by Major Richard Bong on April 16th, 1945. Perhaps you know that fact or tell guests about it, but the connection to the presentation you're about to hear relates to this aircraft, the P-38 Lightning, one of America's fighter aircraft during World War II. And of course, Richard Bong was and is America's top ace of World War II with 40 confirmed aerial victories, higher than any other pilot in any other theater of war. And even to this day, his record has not been exceeded. I guess we'll start off, Brianna, I love when you tell the story of how did we meet? How did we come to know each other? And what was this project that came about because of that?
Yeah, so I was working on the Marge exhibit. We were putting together an exhibit about her. One of the questions that really comes up, and I have a slide on this later that you'll see, one of the most common visitor questions was, well, what happened to Marge? So I did an exhibit about her. And then in talking to other people, I was just wondering what happened to the Marge plane. And I really thought that I was just looking for documentation of a crash site. Like I thought, well, I'll find out who found it. I just wanted to see some pictures of it. And then I emailed different museums and archives all over the country, eventually connected with Justin and found out that nobody had ever gone to see it. And what is amazing to me is that I contacted him in September of 2023. And in May of 2024, like almost exactly 6 months later, he was in New Guinea finding the airplane. So we moved really, really quick.
Awesome. And, my side of the story, what I really admired about Brianna's message was she sent a very short email, Dear Justin, Pacific Rex, I understand that the P-38 Marge crashed in Papua New Guinea. Is the plane still there? Could it be found? And I replied back to her truthfully, I don't know, but let's find out. And from there became a collaboration between the Richard I. Bong Veteran Heritage Historical Center and Pacific Recs to conceive a project to mount an expedition to search for, hopefully locate and identify that plane crash. And that's what we're going to talk to you about today. So just to kick things off, we have a very short video clip. I hope the sound plays through. We'll find out, but if not, you'll get the picture.
Richard Bong of Poplar, Wisconsin, who became the leading American ace with 40 combat victories.
This plane, largely because of Marge's picture, became probably one of the most famous American airplanes of World War II.
This is the plane that belonged to Richard Bong, the ace of aces, one of the top figures of the war.
He seemed to love that plane, and I think that went a long way into making him who he was.
The Marge aircraft is the iconic P-38 photograph of the war.
But Marge crashed in Guinea, and the plane just disappeared.
We needed somebody to say, I wonder who could find Marge.
I had no idea what I was setting in motion, no. Like, this is something the Smithsonian does. It's not something that a little museum in Superior does. But I think finding this plane is important because I really want to bring him back into the national consciousness.
I've always known that Richard Bong's Marge was potentially a crash that could be found. It wasn't until the Bong Center called and this kind of crazy idea was hatched that I realized, wow, this is the chance to make a discovery. Very good. And Brianna, over to you.
Yeah, I'm just going to very quickly run through the Bong Center for those of you who aren't aware of it, just give you a little bit better idea of who and what we are. We are a museum that opened in 2002. Our mission is to honor Major Bong and be a community center, right? So we want to be inclusive and invite everybody into the center. But we are not named just after, we are named after Richard Bong, but we are not just about him. So we honor all local veterans. We tell their stories. We preserve their stories through oral history. So you can go to the next slide. And this is our museum, and this is our one of our volunteers. We have an American Legion post that is installed here at the building with us. And so they provide many of our docents and education people, and this is one of them. And we do a lot of school tours and group tours. And so our focus is really 20th century history in addition to Major Bong. And then this is the airplane. This is our replica of Marge. This plane came to Poplar, which is just outside of Superior, in 1949. And was donated to the town there, where it sat outside on pylons for about 50 years. They did take it down to restore it, but under the condition that it had to go back into a building. So this building was built, half of it was put together, the plane was moved in, and then the other half was built around it. So this is the centerpiece of our museum, and we have a Pacific Theater theme around it. And then this is our Bong exhibit. I always point this out to everybody who visits. He was very famous during World War II. This is a headline from the LA Times. It says, Major Bong killed. And then I'm paraphrasing, but underneath it says, and by the way, we also dropped a bomb. That was on August 6, 1945. So our goal really, and one of the reasons we're so excited about this Mission Marge project is because this is our goal, is to bring Major Bong's legacy back into the national memory. And so programs like this, I'm so excited to be here that we can share his story with people from around the country. And then I was going to tell the Marge story, but I think I already did that. So this is our Marge exhibit. We talk about her life with Bong a little bit, but then it's much more about the life that she built after he passed away, and the family that she had and the career that she had. And she was a pretty amazing woman. I saw one person put in the comments that they met her at an air show. I don't think we would exist if it weren't for her. In the 90s, she returned to Superior, and she traveled all over the country raising money to build this museum. And she would go to air shows, and I never got to meet her. I wish I had, but she would go to air shows, and those World War II veterans treated her like a rock star, from what I hear, that they would wait in line, for a copy of her book and to get an autograph. So we owe a lot to her, and I think it's just as important to us to honor her memory as it is Major Bong's. And then just a very quick picture to show that we are more than Bong in World War II. So we installed some exhibits about Korea and Vietnam, honoring local veterans. And I'll just say, if anybody's ever in the area, please get in touch with me. I would love to give you a tour, walk you through the museum, give you free admission, and show you what else we do here. And but I'm excited here. I don't want to talk too much about the museum, so I want to get to Mission Marge. But it is one of the most important things we've done as a museum, and so we're excited to tell you about it.
Very good. Back over to me. My name is Justin Talon, as I said. A lot of people ask how I became involved in this. Like many people, I had a connection. My grandfather served in the U.S. Army during World War II in the Pacific. He was a combat photographer and soldier. In the 1990s, like many veterans, he took a trip back to the places he served. He wanted to go by himself, not on any kind of tour. And he brought me, his 16-year-old grandson, with him. And on that trip, we went to Papua New Guinea. And we saw war wreckage that remained, battlefields, bomb craters, and crashed airplanes. I was blown away. I knew back home in the U.S., the only place you could see stuff like that were in museums like the Air and Space Museum. I'd been on the Paul Garber facility tour many times, and I was looking at aircraft with no rope around them, no do not touch sign, and I was blown away. So after that trip, the pictures of wreckage that I observed, I put on a new thing called the World Wide Web, and the rest is history. It expanded into a website called Pacific Rex, and has been online now for over 30 years. And I personally, across the world, mostly in Asia and Pacific, have surveyed thousands of aircraft wrecks and aviation sites in many countries. I've also been involved with the locating and discovery or reporting of missing in action sites, which is a very satisfying part of this work. Many of these airplanes had fatalities involved, both the United States, our allies, and Japanese. Pacific Rex is a free online website that has the mission of really trying to locate those that are missing to this day, share information, and also advocate for the protection and preservation of these sites. So I encourage everybody to visit online, pacificrex.com. Very briefly, we're going to talk about one aircraft today that, as you heard, is arguably one of the most famous aircraft of World War II. What is amazing when Brianna first emailed is I thought, oh, everything that's been researched about this plane, P-38 Marge, has already been told or written. And that may be true to some degree, but the full history of this aircraft, I was shocked, had not really been explored or documented. And the most fascinating aspect of it is how short of a lifespan this plane had. Only 87 days from the day it was completed at the factory in Lockheed Burbank till its demise when it crashed in New Guinea. This plane, without a doubt, is famous because it was assigned to Richard Bong, and he flew it in combat during February and March 1944. Flying this airplane, Bong actually claimed 3 of his aerial victories, plus a ground victory, which was not officially credited. And it was the first airplane that Richard Bong assigned a nickname and nose art. Although he had been flying an entire tour of duty before this, his airplanes had no personalization on them, no nickname, no nose art. And it was crashed due to mechanical failure by another pilot who was flying Bong's plane. Although a plane was assigned to Bong, it would be flown by any qualified pilot in theater, and that was the case when it was lost. So the airplane story begins, like I said, it's a California girl, I guess you could say, born in the Lockheed factory in Burbank. And here's a production line photo. Absolutely incredible to imagine this scale of industrial production And this photo was taken in January 1944, very near the time that Marge was built. Every aircraft assigned to the U.S. Army Air Force had two unique numbers. One was the Lockheed constructor's number. This was a 4-digit number that was the plane's number while it was in the factory up and until it was assigned and delivered to the Army Air Force. In the Army Air Force, it had a serial number that was the military code for the airplane. The Lockheed constructor number also remained on the aircraft, but was sort of a relic of its production era only. Every aircraft in the inventory of the Army Air Force had a status card or a record card. You see this here. This is the card for Marge. And highlighting a few things, it has handwritten notes, the serial number of the airplane, and a list of its movements in the United States. It flew to Texas for modification and then was flown back to Oakland, where it was disassembled for shipment overseas. And the final entries at the bottom are coded, but basically says condemned accident non-combat, meaning the plane was lost or condemned in a non-combat incident. What is also interesting is after the flights in the United States and disassembly, this aircraft actually went overseas aboard a U.S. Navy escort carrier, the USS Fanshawe Bay. And the pictures you see here are from their cruise book. The flight deck of a Navy CVE escort carrier crammed with P-38 Lightnings. Some of them are partially disassembled with one or both wings removed, and others are completely intact. Every aircraft, you'll notice, is wrapped in a plastic covering to protect it from the elements, the salt and seawater. And this is how Marge traveled from the west coast of the United States, Oakland, to Australia. And potentially one of these pictures one of these aircraft pictured here is Marge. You can see a few more pictures, including the removal of the airplanes in Australia at Townsville, which is in the far north of Australia in their state of Queensland. In Australia, the plane was then flown to Nadzab Airfield in Papua New Guinea, where it was assigned to the pilot, at that time, Captain Richard I. Bong. And this is one of the famous photos of Bong standing next to the nose of the aircraft with his scoreboard of Japanese rising sun flags indicating his aerial victory claims. And you can see next to him is the serial stencil of the aircraft that says P-38J-15LO, the model and the block number, and Air Force serial number 42103-993, the serial number of that aircraft. So this is Marge in this picture. This is an artistic rendering of what the plane looked like when it was flown by Bong in combat. It was a natural aluminum color. It had red wingtips and tail tips and propeller spinners that were chosen by Bong simply because he liked the color. And if you'll notice on the nose there is no nickname or nose art. It wasn't until this plane sustained some minor damage and it was under repair that gun cowling cover was removed and the nickname and nose art were applied. And Brianna, maybe you can tell a little bit about this part of the story. How did this aircraft become so famous? How did it get this nickname and nose art? I'll leave it to you to tell that part of the story.
Yeah, so we are really lucky that early in the 2000s when we first opened, we made contact with this gentleman. His name is Jim Nichols, and he worked in the photography studio at Bong's base. And he wrote a letter detailing exactly what he did for Major Bong to get this nose art onto the plane. So Major Bong brought back this picture of Marge. They had met in 1943, and she gave him a little wallet-sized photo of her graduation photo from the university here. And so he brought it back with him, and he decided he wanted it on the plane. And he originally had hoped, I think, that somebody could paint her picture on there. And Jim looked at that picture and was like, that's beyond my talent. So he just blew it up really big, put it on the plane and shellacked it about 10 times to get it to stay on, and then painted the Marge on there. And then he colorized her photo as well. So this is a photo that he gave us that he also colorized. So we have this wonderful provenance in the collection about exactly how that nose art appeared on the plane.
Incredible. And, you know, like many, I did not know that, Brianna. I actually thought that it was a painted, very photorealistic rendering, but actually, if we look at the next picture, it's a decal, really. It's an enlarged photograph that was just adhered to the nose of the plane, sort of like you do a car wrap today, and an adhesive put over top. But that's the story of it. It was really an enlarged photograph of Marge, not a painted nose art.
Mhm.
And anyway, this is a photo from the Bong collection, actually, and the Bong Center there has the largest collection of photos associated with Richard Bong and of this airplane. This is one of them. You can see all the features of the nose, the personalizations, as well as the official Army, Air Force, and Lockheed markings. This visual sort of overlays to show you those. You can see the yellow Lockheed factory constructor number, Army Air Force numbers, and the red indicating Bong's personal markings. You'll notice on the nose was a large 993, the last 3 digits of the serial number, and it appears that they're being erased. Probably if this airplane had continued service, the ground crew were working to erase those numbers just to give it a more sleek appearance, or perhaps they had begun to fade and tarnish in the tropical heat and weather, that they were being removed. This is another picture from the Bong Center collection. It's unique because it shows the entire aircraft from a wide view. Most of the photos are just of the nose section, and you can see the red wingtips and the overall view of the plane. Again, overlaying some of the individual markings, Army Air Force markings, and Lockheed constructor number on the nose. This is the pilot that actually crashed the plane, and he was assigned to a night fighter squadron that had just arrived in the theater. Were doing their familiarization flights, and Bong was actually flying with them to help spin up their pilots. And this pilot, Thomas Malone, flew Marge on 2 occasions, and on March 23rd and then March 24th, when he experienced mechanical issues with the airplane. It went into a spin. He was unable to control the aircraft and bailed out. He did land very close to the front line at that time. He could have been captured or perhaps had a different fate, but luckily where he bailed out and where Marge crashed at that moment was sort of just inside Allied lines, and he later that afternoon met Army soldiers and was returned to duty fairly quickly. But from the moment he bailed out of Marge, the plane disappeared. He last saw it in a cloud, and even in tropical New Guinea, the weather was bad, and there was snow that he observed as he descended in his parachute. So quite remarkable, obviously probably indicating an intense thunderstorm, as well as the mechanical failure that he had. Marge is also famous because even though it was lost in late March, when Bong exceeded Eddie Rickenbacker's World War I victory record, the only pictures of Bong were those that we showed you before, taken in New Guinea about a month before with P-38 Marge. So here you can see Eddie Rickenbacker in his office holding that picture of Bong that we saw before, admiring him and genuinely pleased that he exceeded his record. Also, Marge and her mom are pictured there holding that same photo. And this was the image used in the press across the United States to laud Bong as America's newest ace of aces. And not only that, amazingly, in the Bong archives is a political cartoon depicting Bong in Marge bopping a Japanese pilot on the head. This is a famous political cartoonist, and I guess it's true that, you know, when you have a political cartoon made of you, you've really entered the mainstream of America, and there it is. You can see a stylized Richard Bong, but on the nose of that P-38 is the word Marge and the artwork. So is a very quick overview of the history of this airplane and why, in my opinion, and I'm sure you'll agree, it is arguably one of the most famous aircraft of World War II. So with that said, Pacific Rex undertook the challenge of going to New Guinea and searching for this plane. And how do you find an airplane that's crashed more than 80 years later? And as we all know, in the World War II era, there was no GPS, there was no accurate positionings. All the records just have dead reckoning, you know, lost near a mile out to sea and so forth. And really the only clue was the pilot, Malone, when he bailed out, describing how many minutes into the flight he experienced these mechanical issues. We knew his takeoff location, we knew how far he had flown at estimated cruise speed, and we knew where generally he was rescued, and that was it. So the process of trying to locate this site really involved guesswork, and I created a list of a number of potential locations and nearby villages that might know of a plane wreck on their land that could be this aircraft. And going there, we did visit a number of sites, including first a Japanese plane wreck that was not a P-38, but still of great interest. And amazingly, the first community that we chose to investigate, they had two sites on their land. One, this Japanese aircraft, and the second proved to be the plane we were looking for. So on this crash site, it's impacted the jungle. It is not an intact airplane, and it fills an area roughly a football field size with a sloping elevation and trees and vegetation over it. Amazingly, our documentation shows that really the entire aircraft is there. Aside from the local people who have visited the site over the decades, nothing's really been removed. Probably there are some pieces lost to history or buried in the ground that would have to be excavated, but there is evidence that really the entire airplane is there, but without a pilot, crashing in a spin, it just shredded as it impacted trees, vegetation, crashed into the ground, and then over 80 years, erosion moved it pieces downhill to slightly different spots than where they impacted. I'm going to very briefly show you some of the evidence that we documented that prove that this aircraft, this crash site on this hillside in remote New Guinea, is an American airplane, a P-38, a J model, and specifically Bong's aircraft. So the first piece of wreckage that's really like a fingerprint for aircraft, the undercarriages, are all different on every airplane, and this piece, when I saw it, I realized was going to be very important and diagnostic. You can see here, it looks like a tube lying on the ground, looks a lot like a tree root or something, but this is one of the main undercarriage landing gear struts from the P-38. Looking at it from another angle, you can clearly see that this is a piece of aircraft. And here is from the P-38 erection and maintenance manual, that same structure highlighted. The landing gear main assembly, as well as a number of the extender arms or strut assemblies that connect it to the nacelle. All these pieces have different part numbers that are often observed stamped on piece of wreckage. And clearly, this undercarriage leg used in a P-38 is a diagnostic feature to the type of aircraft, to the model. But which P-38? Other pieces of wreckage have data plates on them. Data plates are made by subcontractors or Lockheed with details on them, including serial numbers, but those numbers are often not the identity of the airplane, just a sub-assembly or component. Here you can see a very badly damaged from impact radiator. And of interest, this radiator has a fairly large data plate on it, as well as the connecting features to it. Here, looking at a detail of that data plate, you see on the top part number, model, and other important details. This was a very diagnostic piece because it proved that this was from a J model and had a specific part number that can be documented in the erection and maintenance catalog. And here we see the radiator assembly with that same part number, not 197325. And also what's interesting is it says model P38JK. And for those of you that know something about the P38, the J was one of the highly produced models, but what was the P38K? Amazingly, only one was built that was sort of a test or prototype aircraft, but clearly this manufacturer of these radiators was told to that they would be used for two models, one that became a main production, the other that was not. So an interesting artifact, there was only one P38K, and that only stayed in the United States, therefore this aircraft can't be that. And finally, at the point of impact was this incredible artifact. What you see here is the wingtip of the aircraft with red paint on it, as well as portion of the outer wing. And if you look at the upper portion of the slide there, you can see the edge of what is the star and bar insignia, the U.S. Marking in World War II. There's even a landing light visible, the housing, the bulb is shattered, and the cover. But this is a large and identifiable piece of the airplane, the wingtip. And amazingly, in this photo that we saw earlier, that red highlighted area is the same piece of wreckage. So absolutely incredible that there's a piece of wreckage in a World War II era photo showing it. And this piece is the wingtip, and you can see the amount of damage to it. This shows what happens when a plane impacts without a pilot. It's just absolutely destroyed. You can see evidence of probably an impact with a tree as it landed that damaged the leading edge, caving it in, as well as the rippling in the metal. The amount of force it would have taken to do that is hard to imagine. And this, of course, was a subsonic crash at only a few hundred miles an hour, potentially in a flat spin, and caused tremendous damage to this piece of wreckage. Amazingly, the wingtip had what we were seeking, a stencil. And probably this stencil was covered by the red paint and preserved for all these years, because as you can see in that picture, the red paint is beginning to fade. The upper portion is intact, and in the lower part, you can see bare metal revealed. And on that bare metal was a Army-style stencil with 3 digits. And this is a slide of what I was pointing to in that photo. You can see clearly 3 digits, a 9, a 9. The third is a little worn, but with enhancement, you can see that it's actually a 3. And looking further, this is what those full digits would have looked like. They faded a bit over time, but this is the stencil on the aircraft. Amazingly, in the factory, all the major assemblies, the center section, the wings, Lockheed stamped with the serial number. And you can imagine as they came together in the production line, the 993 wings were mated with the 993 fuselage to create a finished aircraft. And other P-38s that have survived as crash sites also have this documentation. And clearly, it's the greatest discovery because it proves not only is this a P-38 Lightning, a J model, but specifically the plane with the serial number 993. This is Richard Bong's Marge. Now, obviously, the nickname Marge on the gun cowling or the picture of Marge that was adhered to the nose, we did not locate any trace of them. Hopefully in the future, we'll go back and continue to look, but on a removable gun panel, it's very likely that that piece of wreckage was destroyed on impact or broken in a way that it's just not present and visible. And of course, the Marge picture, although it would be remarkable to imagine it remaining, It was made of photographic paper that are chemicals with 80 years of bacteria and exposure in the jungle. I would imagine that even if a piece of that picture survived, it was be destroyed by the passage of time and those natural impacts. So nonetheless, this is a fascinating and important discovery. Again, arguably one of the most important crash sites for the United States in Papua New Guinea. And until our expedition, it had not been looked for, it had not been documented because nobody died in this plane. It was the pilot bailed out and survived, and therefore was just one of thousands of aircraft lost due to accidents and malfunctions during the war. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Brianna and tell you about what we've been working on since the expedition and what will be the next steps. So Brianna, over to you.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say that when we first got into this project, we've never done anything like this before. So we were very grateful to have Justin's expertise. And what we learned was that all the aircraft belonged to New Guinea. Anything left after the war was turned over by the Army Air Force and given to New Guinea. So, and we've heard about previous projects that maybe, didn't go about things the best possible way in terms of recovering pieces. So we went into this project knowing that we wanted to be extremely ethical and we wanted to build relationships. So we didn't want to just go in, find the plane, and then leave and never come back again. So it has been our goal to form long-term partnerships. We have signed an agreement with the National Museum in Port Moresby to be essentially sister museums where we offer support to each other and exhibit assistance. And one of the first things that we did, Pacific Rex and the Bong Center partnered to put together this panel about Major Bong. And on the reverse side is a panel about Mission Marge and finding the airplane. And that got installed in this hangar that you see on the lower left corner. That is the museum's newest hangar that was a partnership with the Australian Justin, you can correct me.
Air Force.
Australian
Yep.
Air Force, yeah. So that exhibit is now in their museum. I believe it was the first exhibit that was donated to them for that hangar, and it's partnered with their P-38 wreckage that they have in their museum. So we are really excited about that. I'm not going to get into the weeds, but we have also formed a sister city relationship. Poplar, Wisconsin, and Madang, which is the city closest to the crash site, have become sister cities. So really, we are looking forward to many years of relationships with the people over there and supporting each other in whatever way that looks like to help the village near the crash site and to protect the crash site itself.
Absolutely. And I'll just add as well, yes, as Brianna mentioned, although this aircraft was purchased by taxpayer dollars, was assigned to the U.S. Army Air Force at the end of World War II, as we know, all across the world, tons and tons of material was abandoned, was just left in the places where the war left it, including this crash site. And New Guinea, like many countries and governments, has a law to claim ownership of war surplus material, including this airplane. And that is why and how the country of Papua New Guinea is the owner of the Marge crash site or all other World War II wreckage. That ownership is managed by their National Museum, which is the caretaker of these artifacts, and therefore was the entity that we wanted to partner with to alert them to the importance of this site, advocate for its preservation and protection, and also support them in ways with exhibits and expertise about this artifact to see that it and the many other airplane wrecks that remain in New Guinea are an important part of their present and future. So Brianna, tell us about what's in store for the Bong Center.
Yeah, so we are hoping to build a Mission Marge exhibit. This is a high level rendering of what it could look like with a jungle scene. we are in the very beginning stages of this. But one of the things that I'm hoping for is to get some feedback from all of you on the exhibit and what it could look like, what from a visitor perspective, what you think visitors would like to see. One of the things that I'm really intent on is it's going to be a jungle scene, of course, and talk about Mission Marge, but it's really also going to be about the people of Papua New Guinea, the assistance that they gave during World War II to the Allies, and sort of mirror that with the assistance that they gave to Justin and his team. I mean, we never could have found it without their help. Yeah, so this is the beginning plans for an exhibit here in the center, and we would love to get feedback on that from you guys.
Very good. And as we all know, although we love aviation history and can talk stats and details to the end of time, there is an appreciation that to make this history accessible to a broader audience, a wide audience, how should I say, you need to broaden the perspective a bit. And Brianna, you want to end with that and talk about the mascot and so forth?
Yeah, so one of the very funny things, so Justin and had brought along a photographer, so we had hours and hours of footage and photographs from the trek out to the crash site. And one of the things that happened, they had some of the village dogs with them, and the dogs like scared up this animal, and it ran underneath the legs of all of the guys on the team. And it just sort of like, I think one of my first questions to Justin after I saw the footage is like, I can't wait to talk about everything, but first I want to know what the animal was. And it was a bandicoot. And so he has become our mascot. So you saw the 1 minute clip, the trailer for our documentary. That is going to be premiering at the end of March. That's about a half-hour documentary, but we are also making a children's documentary. It's going to be about 6 to 8 minutes, and Marty the Bandicoot is the mascot and the MC of that documentary, and so he's going to walk the kids through everything. And we're just really excited about how that's going to play for our audience, and I will certainly share the link to all of that with you guys when it's up on YouTube.
Very good. Well, thank you, everyone. As we wrap up, we hope you enjoyed hearing about P-38 Marge, the history of this plane in World War II, its association with Richard Bong, the effort to locate the crash site and identify it. And like I said, we would like to kind of open the floor to hear feedback from you guys about what a potential exhibit could include or should include. And also we would love to keep in touch. To end on the screen are the websites for the Bong Center and Pacific Rex, as well as the contacts for Brianna and I. Thank you so much, everybody, for the opportunity to speak, and hope to see you all in the future at the Air and Space Museum, or perhaps EAA next year, for Paul at least. So thank you, everybody.
At least. Thanks, Justin. Thanks, Brianna. Let me run through the questions, and then we'll have you stop sharing your screen so we can get everyone's pictures up. One of the questions is, can you give the lat longs of the wreckage site or the city in New Guinea that it's closest to?
Great question. Unfortunately, the answer is no. We are protecting the precise crash site location for obvious reasons. The crash site, if the coordinates were published or known, could be exploited by someone with malintent or even removed for scrap metal. So the precise coordinate is something that we're protecting very carefully. We do hope in the future to have perhaps a Bong family member or visit the crash site, which is something the local community wants. That would be an incredible and special thing. We, until then, though, want to make sure that the site is protected, and kind of like historic shipwrecks, a general location is known, that is the vicinity of Madang, Papua New Guinea, but the specific Latin long is something that is best to be not published and publicized at this time.
Okay. air base was Marge flying out of when he had to bail out of it?
Yes, great question. So the place, Richard Bong had 3 tours of duty in World War II, and this Marge was assigned to him at the start of his 2nd tour, and he was flying from the air base at Nadzab in present-day Papua New Guinea. And that air base is still used today as a domestic airport. It was a huge base built by the Americans. There were actually 4 different airfields there, and Bong flew missions from that airfield Nadzab, as well as Malone, the pilot, when it crashed.
Okay, was this the only airframe that Bong had the Marge picture painted on? Or
Great question.
installed
Do you
on?
want to take that one, Brianna?
No, yes. No, it's not the only one. He did have some Marge markings put on when he returned. So the Marge plane was lost. He went home on leave and then came back and had the Marge markings put on. Although I think if I remember right, Justin, we don't have any pictures. We have pictures of the second plane with the outline. You can see the outline of where the picture would be, but there's no picture there. So there's no picture of the second plane with the Marge photo on it. And then he did also fly a replica, a Marge airplane when he was home on leave. So the Army Air Forces gave him a P-38 to fly in the United States, and that had the Marge markings on it.
Okay.
Excellent question. Yeah, and I'll just add to that. I'll share something as well for those that want to visit Pacific Rex. We have a page on aircraft flown by and assigned to Major Bong. And as Brianna said, the Marge that we talked about today was the first Marge with the picture on it. In New Guinea, after the crash, Bong had another P-38 assigned to him that also had the picture put on it. But amazingly, or serendipitously, the picture kept falling off. It's kind of a funny story that he would fly a mission and the picture would just be gone. And he would ask for another enlargement to be made and adhered. And for whatever reason, it just didn't stick literally on the second Marge. And as Brianna said, when he came back from his 2nd tour in the United States, he had a P-38 assigned to him with the Marge nickname and nose art. It was a slightly different variation, so there were a total of 3 aircraft. I should add, today, there are 2 aircraft painted in the markings of Marge, one at the Bong Center that we saw the slide of, and the other in the EAA Museum. So, of course, those are not the real Marge, but they are P-38s in the markings. I believe also there was one P-38 that was flying painted in Marge markings, but it has since been repainted. So currently 2 Marges in the United States and 3 historically.
Okay, I think you answered this question, but the film you showed at the beginning and the documentary Brianna is going to make available when they're ready to go on YouTube. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I'll send you a link.
Okay, terrific. Harley wants to know if there are Japanese teams doing the same thing Pacific Rex is doing for the Japanese losses in World War II.
Great question. Yes, there are Japanese entities that are involved in documenting crash sites and wreckage. They are mostly independent groups. Their Japanese government does also look for remains of Japanese soldiers in places like New Guinea and across the Asia-Pacific region, and that's part of their Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare. They are not interested in sites that do not have fatalities. The Japanese aircraft that we mentioned documenting before finding Marge, according to the local people, the pilot walked away from, and the wreckage indicated an airplane that had likely force landed, was probably a non-fatal crash. What happened to that pilot afterwards? Did he return to friendly lines? Was he captured or died elsewhere? We don't know. But that aircraft itself does not have any remains associated with it, therefore is not of interest to the official Japanese authorities.
Okay. One final question, Justin. What is the protocol you have when you get to a wreckage and you find some form of human remains?
Great question. You know, tragically, most airplanes that crashed are associated with fatalities. And if there are remains visible on the surface, they are documented carefully. but they are not disturbed. In the case of sites where local people have already recovered or collected some of these remains, they can be documented and instructed to hold them until the proper authorities can come and collect them. Today, several entities do missing in action recovery work in places like New Guinea. The United States has its agency that does that work, goes to the country roughly once a year. Also, the Japanese and Australians and other entities sometimes operate there. So for remains found at a site, if they are truly associated with a missing in action or a fatality that has not been collected, it's an important issue for the authorities to deal with. Sometimes under specific circumstances, they empower a third-party entity like Pacific Rex to collect those remains and deliver them to the National Museum or the U.S. Embassy. We have done that work before, but if it is a newly discovered crash site, for instance, where there are remains, it will be dealt with by a team in a future visit.
Okay, great. I've got us in gallery view now. If anyone has some comments for Brianna about the future site, John Handy, you got your hand raised. Go ahead.
Yeah, Rihanna, you were asking about what to do, and I'm thinking that every time you tune into Netflix now, it's 99% forensics. You know, you can learn all about murders here and there, but it
Yeah.
seems to me also that you just told is a great forensic story. And I
Mhm.
would think that if you actually use that term and have a small looping video or something along those lines that would show the story of what Justin just told, how he found it, how he identified the parts, how he identified the numbers, might be a really very attractive thing to sort of student age people. So that's just a thought.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah, I think that's great. I really appreciate the feedback.
thanks, John. Dennis, you got a comment? You turned on your video.
Yeah, you got me. Well,
Go ahead. Yep.
yeah. We all know that the P-38 had a fantastic reputation in World War II, and the kill ratio alone is unbelievable. But in spite of that, the P-38 also had some negative characteristics at high speed. Okay, because of the design of the tail. Obviously, Major Bong did particularly well in overcoming those negative characteristics because of his kill rate. You know what he accomplished. Do we have any record of what he did differently that made it so good?
Dennis, great question. I'll jump on that. So yes, you're right. Every aircraft has its sort of positive and negative attributes, and just the nature of air combat or designing an airplane, you can't have everything. And if you build a mediocre airplane that's sort of equally good at everything, it's also poor. Bong, we know from press accounts where he talked about the P-38 and how he scored victories, exactly what you're asking. What Richard Bong said about the P-38 was something quite different than the sort of stats of high speed or diving attributes that we focus on. Bong, like most pilots in the South Pacific, said he loved the P-38 because it had two engines. If you had a problem with one, the insurance policy was the other. So that was something that made pilots feel very confident that they could get home. Even if they sustained damage or underperformance in one of the engines, they could make it back. So the endurance of the airframe. And the second aspect of the P-38 that Bong spoke highly of was the firepower. The P-38, as we know, had their machine guns and cannon in the nose, firing forward. A very concentrated cone of fire versus wing-mounted or a mix of armament. And that meant that if a plane got in front of you, if you were in a firing position, there was a very good chance the P-38 could inflict damaging hits on that plane. In terms of Bong's aerial victories, surprisingly, he did not consider himself to be a great shot. And this is something that's sort of counterproductive, but also interesting on how a pilot overcomes deficiencies. Bong generally, in most of his air combat for his first tour, would make the easiest shots, dead astern, head on, zero deflection shooting against enemy targets. And he had the one thing that you just can't put your finger on, luck. He was engaged in a tremendous amount of air combat where there were encounters with Japanese planes. Many missions did not make any claim, but he was just by serendipity, by luck, in a lot of combat where he was in a position to score aerial victories. So that is a broad answer to your question, but it's also interesting that, Bong didn't talk about its turning ratio or diving speeds, but rather those more basic aspects of 2 engines, firepower, and his own luck that he acknowledged.
Thank you.
He also went for gunnery training between his second and third tour. So I find it interesting that, to think about had he had that gunnery training earlier on, because he did always say he was a bad shot. He just got close enough where he couldn't miss, is what he would say. So that gunnery training really did improve his skills when he got back for his third tour.
Brianna, there's a question in the chat about...
Yeah, Bong had something not a lot of pilots have, humility to admit mistakes and deficiencies. Sorry, somebody was speaking.
Okay. Brianna, there's a question in the chat about docents and your docent program there, and then I'll get to Bill Hagen next.
Yes. So we do have some docents at the museum. Unfortunately, COVID has, we're still not fully recovered from that. So, but yes, we do have docents, and I'm just reading the question. Absolutely. We have tour guides in the summer. So that is definitely something that we bring into the museum experience, is that personal touch.
Okay. Bill Hagen, go ahead.
Thank you.
How did you find the aircraft and the end result? Was a native say, "Oh, I found a wreck over here"?
Yes, great question. As I alluded to, local knowledge is so important. All the research that we could do from the armchair is just the preparatory work. Until you get into the field and speak with local people, if they don't reveal what secrets they know about, what knowledge they have, you can't walk around in the jungle and hope to find anything. Also, New Guinea, just like our country, every piece of ground is owned by somebody, and it's really important to respect their culture and customs, to go to the right community, ask their permission to enter their land, and of course, with their cooperation, they're aware of these sites. Not that this plane wreck was one flown by Richard Bong, but they know, in the case of the Bong's crash site, amazingly, they had the oral tradition in their community about, oh yeah, the pilot of that plane bailed out. We helped him. We found him near the river and brought him to the Americans. They knew this story. They didn't know the pilot's name. They didn't know the date, but they knew the story. And that's remarkable.
Can you get that?
And on a final note, I should add that after our successful identification, we sort of had a briefing for their community. They were very excited to know that their plane wreck is not only known, but associated with a famous pilot with beautiful nose art on it, and they were very proud. And when they saw the picture of Marge, that famous picture of the nose art and nickname, everybody in the community, old and young, said, "That's a beautiful woman, and we're proud that that's our plane." So it's amazing to me how sort of the universality of all this, the sort of everybody from the people in New Guinea to those in our country can see and admire this.
So a native led you to the plane.
Yes, the local people knew about this crash. They knew about a plane wreck on their land. They didn't know what it was, what type of airplane, but they had a story of the pilot being rescued and were aware of a plane that had crashed. And like everything, not everybody in the community had even been to this site. And when we trekked there, there was a bit of, deviation to sort of relocate this plane. It's not a place that they go to often. It's quite far inland from their community, but it is on land that they have an ancestral claim to. So yes, the local people knew about this site, but did not know precisely who the pilot was or the identity of the aircraft.
Okay, we've got two more quick questions. Do you know the provenance of the P-38 that's in the New Guinea Museum?
Yes, the plane that you saw in Brianna's slide is also a famous airplane. It is a P-38F model with a known serial number. I'll bring it up if you give me a moment. And that airplane was actually in Port Moresby flying missions at the time Bong was there in his first tour of duty. I don't know from flight records if Bong ever flew that P-38, but it was there at the same time, and probably Bong would have laid eyes on it or was at the same airfield he was operating from. But it's an F model. It is unrestored, but largely complete.
And while you're bringing that up, Justin, is there any intention to bring any parts of the wreckage back to the Bong Center?
That's a great question. I guess a lot of people, certainly in the aviation community, it's like anything that's found, the obvious question is like, we got to bring it back. And all I can say is there's two challenges to that. One is the legality. Does the National Museum, does the government of PNG allow it? And the other side is the cost. Recovering anything, especially an aircraft wreck from a remote location, even in the United States, is an expensive endeavor. So it takes both permission and funding to recover anything.
And
Okay.
I'll just mention one more time that we have the partnership with the National Museum in New Guinea. So we're not just walking away from this crash site. We want to do what we can to protect it. We don't maybe quite know what that looks like yet, but we're not done with that story yet. We're working with them to protect it.
Okay.
And,
a couple quick
and
announcements.
here's that P-38 in the museum. This is a photo in 1969 of that airplane. It force landed. You can imagine walking up to this, remarkable. Until the late 60s, early 70s, even early 80s, 90s, plane wrecks like this were all over New Guinea. This one was recovered and is donated to the National Museum and Art Gallery in Port Moresby. It is a wrecked plane. It will never fly again, but it is externally complete and a remarkable early P-38F model. So that's the plane that's in the museum.
Okay, thanks, Justin. A couple quick announcements. We have a docent council meeting tomorrow night at 7 o'clock for those who want to participate. And our next DEZ is going to be on the Schneider Trophy Race, which is 100th anniversary, was last fall. And we'll do that in 2 weeks on the 26th, or the 23rd, I'm sorry. Justin, Brianna, this was fantastic. Thank you very much. We had over 70 people on the call. I'll send you the link for the recording, and when you have those links for us, Brianna, that'd be fantastic.
Well,
really wonderful presentation.
Thank you all so much. It was such a thrill to be here.
Very good.
Thanks,
well,
everybody.
we encourage you to visit Pacific Rex in the Bong Center, and perhaps we'll see some of you at the Air and Space Museum or at the Bong Center or EAA this year.
Yeah, we'll definitely see you at EAA this summer. So thanks. Bye-bye.
Very good. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.